People think that to play R&B and Neosoul, or jazz if that's what you like, you need thousands of chord shapes, all inversions, all string sets. And it's not like that. If you play jazz, for example, you may use a tool called the Real Book to learn and practice jazz standards. And if you think about it, you find always the same chords. So all you need really is the concept of chord families or chord species. What the fuck does that mean, you may ask? And I'm glad you asked. So for this lesson, I'm gonna assume that you already know major and minor chords, just because otherwise the video would be too long. What you need to know next is major 7 chords. And start with this position with the root on the A string. This is a C, for example, so fret number 3. That's a lovely shape for a C major 7. If you're into the caged system, this comes from an A major 7. So you've got this position, and what you need to remember when you practice this position, guys, is the position of the root, because if you know that, you can move it anywhere else on the neck in all other keys. And then you need another position with the root on the E string, because we guitarists are quite simple. We like to play chords with the root on the A or on the E string 99% of the times. So the same note C is on fret 8 of the E string now, and you need to know this position, which, if you know nothing about 7 chords, will look like you've got an A minor shape here. You don't really, but you know what I mean. Okay, so this is your C major 7. Again, you've got 2 positions, you can survive. You've got to play a major 7 chord. You know, you've got this option, you've got this option, you're good to go. However, I want to give you a bonus position, which is this one, which is still a C major 7 with the root on the A string. And if you play a C major 7, this will include 2 open strings. But guess what? Because you know where the root note is, you can move it wherever you like. You want to play it as an E major 7? Find an E on the same string, fret 7, and you can use this position, this shape. Okay, if you were to strum it, maybe you can use your thumb to move the low E string, but let's not get into that. This is the position that you need when you move this, and you're good to go, because you know enough major 7 positions now. Once you're done with this, you move on to minor 7 chord positions, and again you start from the same roots. So root on the A string, again this is a C, fret 3. You need to know this beautiful and really helpful if you play R&B, minor 7 position. So C minor 7, and this comes from an A minor 7 position, again if you're into the caged system and you want to refer to that. And then guess what? You need obviously a position with the root on the E string, fret 8. Now here you can practice this. This is one of my favorite. It's really, really helpful, and it allows you to stretch your pinky if you ever need to play a minor 9. But you can also finger it this way if you like. And again, very comfortable to play with the pinky, the 9th on the 1st string, but this is the position essentially. And if you don't like this, you can practice a bar chord position like this. This comes from the E shape of the caged system. This is an E minor, you lift one finger and you get an E minor 7, therefore you can play your C minor 7 like this. This is where it comes from, so that you also get a little bit of an understanding where these positions come from. They don't come from Mars, I promise. It's easier than it looks like. Now, forgot to mention, all of these diagrams with tabs as well will be on my Patreon page if you need them. And as usual, for my patrons, there will be an exclusive lesson that you only find there, which will also teach you these positions with the root note on the D string, just in case you want to understand a little bit more Neosoul moves. Right after major 7 and minor 7, we open the chapter of dominant 7 chords. And here I could really show you a lot of positions, but let's keep it basic, okay? Again, back to root on the A string, fret 3, that's your C. You can play this, C7, because chances are, if you know how to play an A in open position, you also know this A7, and this C7 that I just played literally comes from this position. So it could be an easy one to move, but also an easy one to remember where it comes from and give you a little bit of an understanding of these chord positions. Then, obviously, you need one with the root on the E string. And that's the one that you must know, which comes from the E shape. There's an E major, you lift one finger, that's an E dominant 7. So now, that's why you can play C7 like this. With these 2 positions, you can already go a long way, but I want to give you an extra one, which if you're into the caged system, this time comes from the C shape. So this is a C major, you put your pinky on the G string, that's a C dominant 7. Now, if you are good at muting the low E string and the first string, the high E string, you can move this wherever you like. You want to play an F7 with this shape, find the F on the same string, again fret 8 of the A string, and you're good to go. C7, F7, you can even play the blues. You know what I mean. So these chords that we just covered, the major 7, minor 7, dominant 7 chords, really are the base you guys need to get into 9, 11, 13 chords that I know that many of you are interested in also learning and you may be a little bit confused about. But also they are the base to understand other things, other concepts like ultra dominant 7 chords, for example. And to help you with all of this, I put together a free resource that you guys will find in the description below underneath this video, which is called the free Neosoul cheat code. It's a cheat code with 32 chord positions, which I have selected as the most important, the ones that I use on a daily basis in my chord progressions, in my songs and everything else, for you to really learn how to play this genre. So yes, you will find the 7th chords that we are covering in this lesson, but also much more, like 9, 11, 13 chords, ultra dominant 7, you will see how helpful that is, and it will be with chord diagrams, tabs and all of that. When you get that free Neosoul cheat code, you will also receive free Neosoul nuggets in your inbox so that we can stay in touch and I can help you become a better R&B Neosoul guitarist. So what are you guys waiting for? Just grab the free Neosoul cheat code at the link in the description below. Then if you really want to, there are 2 more chord pieces or chord families that we can learn, and I'm talking about the half diminished and the diminished 7th chords. Now let's also understand the names. Half diminished means minor 7, flat 5. Essentially a diminished triad with a flat 7 with a minor 7th, which means not all of the chord is diminished because the 7th is not diminished, hence why we call it half diminished. Now which position do you need to know? This one, which again has the root on the A string fret 3, that's your C, so this is a C minor 7 flat 5, okay? We may talk a lot about this chord, it's great for 2-5-1 minor, etc. Or to play the blues, because if you play, say, a C7, which is a chord that we saw before, and you play E half diminished, you are in fact playing a C9. But that's a completely different story for another lesson. Let me know if you're interested in the comments below. But this is your C minor 7 flat 5 with the root on the A string, and once you find the C on fret 8 of the E string for the other position that we need, we've got this shape here, C minor 7 flat 5 rooted on the E string. Okay, I'll go a little bit quicker with these two because it's not necessary for you to learn them, but if you want to, they will help you with the real book, they will help you with other songs, with 2-5-1 minor and all of that. But particularly if you are in R&B and Neosoul, into R&B and Neosoul, you must know the diminished 7th, which is instead a fully diminished 7 chord, which means the triad is diminished, the 7th is also diminished, hence we call it the fully diminished 7 chord, as opposed to the half diminished. Now for this diminished 7 chord, rooted on the A string, you've got this position, okay? Which may look a little bit different from anything else you played so far, or a little bit more difficult than the other position, but trust me, it's not as hard as it looks like. Just train the muscle memory to do this. You know, 2, 3, 1, 4 is my favorite fingering for it. And if you want to see the one with the root on the E string, there is this one here, which has a couple of fingers here and then the bar on the 7th fret. So root is on the 8th as usual. So these two, remember these two positions because they are diminished 7 chords, symmetrical chords. You can move them by half step every time, and you're just playing an inversion of each other. So you're also learning the inversions just with the same shape because they contain the same notes, right? So this is what you guys need to know to get started, at least with minor 7 flat 5 half diminished or fully diminished 7th chord. Okay, if you're interested, obviously on my Patreon page, I will also show you the positions for these chords with the root on the D string. Now, yeah, you can get the real book, open any tune and play at first sight the chords that you find there with major 7, minor 7 and dominant 7. You can go a long way even when the music becomes more difficult. let alone if you were to play just an R&B or Neosoul song that possibly contains 3-7 chords and then the odd major 7 here and there. Now, are we done? No, not at all, because there is much more. There is chord inversions, there is other voicings for the same chords that I just showed you. There is other string sets, like I mentioned, the root on the D string, for example. Then there is omit 3, omit 5, there is shell voicing, there is altered chords. But let me plug something here, because I think it's gonna actually help you. If you like this teaching style, and you also like to understand the music theory behind, this is what I teach in my R&B and Neosoul courses. You will find them at the link below. And just a quick note to say that they are currently at the cheapest price they will ever be. So if you're watching this lesson in the summer 2025, this is the time to get them before they go up in price in September. So these are the chords that I use on a daily basis, and the most important that you must know. Watch this video next if you want to learn a few chord progressions where you can apply exactly these chord positions.